Thanks for watching the video podcast. Of course, if you go on our website, theyoungturks.com, you can get the whole 3-hour show.
Plus an uncensored post-game show.
That's if you become a member on theyoungturks.com. Welcome to the Young Turks. We have a jam-packed show for you tonight. A great set of guests. Nobel Prize winning economist Joseph Stiglitz. He's going to come and talk to us about what caused economic collapse. Should Ben Bernanke go down, or should he be reconfirmed? What about Obama's latest proposals? And then Thomas Ricks, who wrote Fiasco, is telling us that perhaps Iraq might blow up again. And he's going to come on the program a little bit later. And then we're going to have a conservative on, a Tea Party activist who's written a book about it, one of the leading advocates for the Tea Party guys. We'll see if we can reach some agreement or perhaps not. So that'll be later in the program. And if you've followed us on Twitter, what I promise you today, though, is rage. So I would like to start with that. Jerry, can we start with rage? Can we do that? Okay, all right. Let's go. The producer has sanctioned it. Let's go forward. All right, look, today was a disastrous day in terms of political news. A lot of bad news and things that made me very angry. The first one has made a lot of people a hell of a lot more angry than me. It's Obama administration coming out and saying that he's going to do a major spending freeze. It's more accurately a cap on discretionary spending that is non-defense, non-security spending. Okay, now it appears that most of the major economists in the country think this is a terrible idea. I mean, I'm going to give you some quotes here in a second, and they are livid about it. They think it's in the middle of a recession to do a cap on discretionary spending is exactly the wrong thing to do, okay? And they point out that, look, the best you're going to do is about $25 billion in savings. Over a decade, that's $250 billion. Now, that seems like a lot of money, but they say that's really only 3% of the spending that the government's going to do in that time. So you're not saving a hell of a lot from the deficit, and that if you really wanted to take care of the deficit, you'd do a lot of other things, right, and not this. And there's another guy who was against it during the campaign. Oh, right, Barack Obama. We'll get to him in a second as well. Now, I'm a deficit hawk, so I like to cut deficit spending. So I'm not blown away by this. When I saw the headlines and when I saw the details, I wasn't nearly as angry as some other progressives were. And they think, cutting this kind of spending is draconian and it feeds into the Republicans' hands because, they say the government is the problem, et cetera, right? Now, that second part, I'm much more open to, okay? And that's what's got me upset about it more than anything else, okay? Because, look, if you say to me on the substance of this issue, is it the wrong way to go? When you look at it, ultimately I agree with candidate Obama that yes, and I agree with almost all the economists in the country, that this is not the best time to do a freeze and a spending cap on discretionary spending, okay? And as I'm about to explain to you in a second, it's not the best way to handle the reducing the deficit anyway. But that's not what got me worked up. What got me worked up is, my God, man, are you ever going to make a case for the progressive point of view? Or is your plan to constantly give in to the Republican framing? So the Republicans say, oh, the problem is spending, 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 and it's the deficit, and your health care made the deficit spending worse, and you better cap spending, okay? And what does Obama do? Well, I don't know if it's fair to call it a panic. I don't know if it's fair to just say it's a political response to what happened in Massachusetts, but he gives into the Republican framing and says, yeah, okay, you're right, that's the way to go. And I'm going to reverse yet another campaign promise, and I'm going to go in this direction. And when it doesn't have much real effect, and if whatever real effect it has might be negative, it's a gimmick. That's the thing. I mean, it's not like these economists are all in complete agreement because it's a questionable matter. So it's not like Obama doesn't know that it's a political gimmick. He knows it. So this is why it gets me really discouraged that after we had a couple of good days after the Massachusetts election where he came out and said, oh, you know what, we're going to go get the bankers, et cetera, and we're going to do real regulation so this problem doesn't happen again. So now we're back to appeasing Republicans, doing nonsense political tricks that don't really address the problem. And in the end, I'm left with this terrible feeling that Obama is, if I could, take a phrase and turn it on its head, because it's, in this case it's true, a hopeless politician. And what I mean by that is not that none of his policies have any hope of ever working or anything along those lines. I mean that if you're hoping that he's going to be anything other than a politician, then it appears you're hoping on the wrong thing. It's hopeless. No matter what you do with Obama, in the end, he can't help himself. He's going to be a politician. So Massachusetts election, he says, oh, you're mad about us selling out to the bankers. Okay, I'll pretend to hit the bankers here a little bit, and I hope he actually hits them, or maybe he's just pretending because he's a politician. And then I'll turn around and say, oh, the Republicans won, so and they were complaining about the deficit spending, and I won't really care about the substance. I'll just pretend I'm doing something about it, and in fact do something that might hurt. Here you go. Well, that ain't leadership, man. That ain't leadership at all. So the message it sends is what I'm concerned about today, okay? That he is going to continue doing this nonsense stuff. So let's get to the substance now. What do these economists say? Why are they all on board? Here's what really convinced me. Among all the ones I read, Brad DeLong, who's long supported the Obama administration, including the bailouts, etc., and has been one of their fiercest advocates, today called Barack Herbert Hoover Obama. You know Herbert Hoover, the guy who led into the Depression because he thought one of the great genius moves was, hey, in the middle of a terrible recession, depression at that point, that we should begin to cut spending. And now everybody agrees that's not the right way to go. And then when you get into the specifics, he's very tough on him. He says, quote, as one deficit hawk journalist of my acquaintance says this evening, this is a perfect example of fundamental unseriousness. Rather than make proposals that will actually tackle the long-term deficit, either through future tax increases triggered by excessive deficits or through further entitlement spending caps triggered by excessive deficits, come up with a proposal that does short-term harm to the economy without tackling the deficit in any serious and significant way. And that's from a guy who's been supporting him all along, okay? He says it's a symbolic move. Here's another quote. As another deficit hawk points out, it would be one thing to offer a short-term discretionary spending freeze or long-run entitlement caps in return for 15 Republican senators signing on to revenue enhancement triggers. It's quite another to negotiate against yourself and, in addition, attack employment in the short term. See, that's really important. You see what he's saying there? He's saying, look, if you made this as part of a deal, hey, you know what? All right, you Republicans win. I'm going to give you a discretionary spending cap, which is huge. That's what John McCain argued for in the campaign, and it's what I said was a bad idea, but all right. In return, you give me X or you give me Y. You let me raise tax a little bit so we can do real deficit cutting, right? Or you sign on to health care, or you sign on to regulate the banks, something, right? Instead, you give away the House for nothing, and you hurt the economy in the short term, which the Republicans will then use against you to say you screwed up the economy. Here's Jonathan Zasloff, another economist, saying, he titled it, Obama's Self-Inflicted Lobotomy, okay? Quote, perhaps, I'll give you the whole quote. I'm trying to think of what could possibly be a worse plan. Let's see, we might be entering a double-dip recession and unemployment is in double digits, and you're going to freeze spending? What in God's name are they thinking? Perhaps the worst thing about this is how it cedes the ideological ground to the Republicans. At some point, someone must make an argument for the government. And that's the best one of them all. That's exactly right. Look, if you keep saying, oh my God, Republicans are right, oh, we should never spend anything, oh my God, you're so right, oh, in the middle of a depression, or as they're calling it now, the Great Recession, right? We should cut spending. We need to have a progressive president who has the nerve, the courage to say that is not the right answer. The right answer is to come out and say, look, government isn't always, of course, the right answer. That's crazy. But to say that government is never the right answer is equally crazy. There's a time to cut spending. There's a time to increase spending. There's a time to cut taxes. There's a time to raise taxes. But Obama has shown over and over again he's never going to have the political courage to make the progressive case. And with this unilateral disarmament, what do we have? We have the Republicans running roughshod, winning all those arguments in the people's mind because there's no counter-argument. When has anybody ever said, hey, you know what? We need to significantly increase the taxes that the upper class are paying. Because when they were paying more taxes, our economy was doing much better. That was the golden years of America. Nobody makes that. Oh, no, please, Republicans are right. We don't want to raise taxes. Okay, I'll cut all spending. All right, I got more for you. Here's Paul Krugman. Quote, it's appalling on every level. Now, he's quoting Jonathan Zasloff, the economist judge just quoted, saying that Geithner, he might be replacing Geithner, Obama is, if he gets rid of him, with, quote, the rotting corpse of Andrew Mellon. You know who Andrew Mellon was? He was Herbert Hoover's Treasury Secretary, who, according to Hoover, told him to, quote, liquidate the workers, liquidate the farmers, purge the rottenness. Now that sounds like a Republican if I ever heard one, okay? And some shades of the lieutenant governor from South Carolina there. The answer to apparently tough economic times is liquidate the poor, okay? So this is the direction that the country's leading economists think that the Obama administration is going in. Quoting Andrew Mellon, that's pretty harsh, okay? Now, one last one from Krugman. It's a betrayal of everything Obama supporters thought they were working for. Just like that, Obama has embraced and validated the Republican worldview. More specifically, he has embraced the policy ideas of the man he defeated in 2008. A correspondent writes, I feel like an idiot for supporting this guy. You beginning to get the sense of how angry people are over this? Look, and I got more here. I can go to Simon Johnson. Now, Ezra Klein had a great piece about it. He's not an economist. He's a writer for the Washington Post. We got Mark Toma, who's normally an understated economist, going ballistic. I can quote you these economists all day long. But I want to quote you someone else, okay? And he is candidate Barack Obama. And I remember when he thought that doing discretionary spending was a terrible idea, or a freeze on discretionary spending. Let's go to that and then, again, come back and tell you why this is such a terrible path for him. Let's watch Obama in the debates.
How about a spending freeze on everything but defense, veteran affairs, and entitlement programs?
Spending freeze?
I think we ought to seriously consider, with the exceptions of caring for our veterans, national defense, and several other vital issues.
Would you go for that?
Well, the problem with a spending freeze is you're using a hatchet where you need a scalpel. There are some programs that are very important that are currently underfunded. I want to increase early childhood education. And the notion that we should freeze that when there may be, for example, this Medicare subsidy, I think doesn't make...
Oops. Here comes the second debate.
It's important for the president to set a tone that says all of us are going to contribute, all of us are going to make sacrifices, and it means that, yes, we may have to cut some spending, although I disagree with Senator McCain about an across-the-board freeze. Oops. That's an example of an unfair burden sharing. That's using a hatchet to cut the federal budget. I want to use a scalpel so that people who need help are getting help, and those of us like myself and Senator McCain who don't need help aren't getting it. That's how we make sure that everybody is willing to make a few sacrifices.
You want to see it again? Let's go to the third.
And I think it's very commendable, the work she's done on behalf of special needs. I agree with that, John. I do want to just point out that autism, for example, or other special needs, will require some additional funding if we're going to get serious in terms of research. That is something that every family that advocates on behalf of disabled children talk about. And if we have a across-the-board spending freeze, we're not going to be able to do it. That's an example of, I think, the kind of the use of the scalpel that we want to make sure that we're funding some of those programs. Well, look, I think that we do have a disagreement about across-the-board spending freeze. It sounds good. It's proposed periodically. It doesn't happen. And, in fact, an across-the-board spending freeze is a hatchet. And we do need a scalpel because there's some programs that don't work at all. There's some programs that are underfunded. And I want to make sure that we are focused on those programs that work.
Would you go for that?
Well, the problem with a spending freeze is you're using a hatchet where you need a scalpel.
No mas. I'm calling it. We can go on all day long with Obama busting himself up. Okay? I mean, is it a hatchet or a scalpel? I can't tell. Before it appeared that it was a hatchet, now all of a sudden it's a scalpel, right? Because now all of a sudden Obama's in favor of McCain's proposal. And guess what McCain says today? Of course, he says, not enough. Of course. If you keep giving them to the Queen, they're going to ask for the King. You think they're going to be satisfied with that? Of course they're not satisfied. And now, to be fair to Obama, look, this has some flexibility. So it's a spending cap overall, right? But he can move funding around. So now he would come back and say, look, in those debates, I said, I want to be able to give money to some places and not to others. And he's going to turn around and say, well, look, I got a freezing spending cap, but at least I can move it within departments. But if he increases the department, one department, he's got to decrease another department. Understand that, okay? Now, he also has a cute little provision in there that's an emergency provision. Well, you know, if we really need something in an emergency, then we can allocate funds for that, right? You know what that's going to be abused for? Because part of this that's being frozen, and the part that I like, is the agricultural subsidies. Those corn subsidies that are killing us. They're, you know, have caused untold problems for the United States government and society overall, right? You think they're going to freeze those? They're not going to freeze those. Here, you can quote me on it today, okay? We'll come back and tell you, oh, well, look at that. It turns out there was an emergency, and the one thing that they decided to increase the spending on is the farm subsidies. Why? Because that's a political non-starter. That's not going to work. You think all those farm senators and congressmen and senators, they're going to let you get away with that? You think big agriculture is going to let you get away with that? Hell no. Now, that means if you increase those, well, you got to decrease the services you're giving to the poor even more. So if you didn't like this proposal now, wait till you see its execution. Okay. Now, look, every department these days is getting a 10% increase every year. Now, that's a lot, okay, lately. Now, that's not the standard thing throughout time immemorial, okay? But that was the increase last year, for example, right? Now, do I think 10% is the right number? To me, that seems high, to be honest with you. So if he came and said, look, I'm going to do a 5% increase here, but I'm going to do a 15% decrease here, and here's the reasons behind it. Well, I'm definitely listening to that, because I do believe in reducing the deficit. But if you come to me with a Republican gimmick that everybody recognizes to be a gimmick, and at the worst possible time, and you do it only to bow your head to the Republicans, well, then I'm not on board for that. That's crazy. And if you really wanted to control the deficit, you know what you'd go after? Defense spending. Are you kidding? Do you know that defense spending is larger than all discretionary spending combined? There's non-discretionary spending, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, etc., right? But if you take all the other discretionary spending, defense spending is larger. So why don't you include defense spending? Oh, no, but the Republicans will say I'm soft on defense. I can't do it. Look, if you're not cutting defense spending, which is loaded with pork, which is loaded with waste, and you're not going to raise taxes on the richest Americans who already benefited from this economy, well, then you're not really serious about cutting the deficit. You're playing political games. And that's why I say a hopeless politician. Now, I have so much more on this. I want to come back to it a little later. Just quick note of credit here to Senator Ben Cardin, which I did not expect. Democratic senator from Maryland says, hey, you know what? If he wants to get serious, he should cut defense spending. Now, not a lot of times the Democrat will say that because they'll be scared to death that the Republicans will beat him up over it, right? He's like, you know where the biggest waste is? It's defense spending. If he's going to leave that alone, that this is a nonsense political trick. Score one for Senator Cardin from Maryland. Nicely done. That's exactly right. Okay? So if Obama has actual political courage, which at this point I honestly suspect he does not, which is that's the most devastating part. Not the policy implications today, but that implication, the political implication that he's just never going to do the right thing. Never going to have the courage to do it. Never going to have the courage to take them on. Well, then, you know, I'll tell you one thing. I'll know it when I see it. It's kind of like porn, okay? When he has the political courage and he says, oh, yeah, I'm going to cut the hell out of defense spending because I think it's garbage, okay? Well, okay, then I'm open. Hey, when he says, I'm going to come after the rich. I'm not going to tax the middle class, their health care plans. I'm going to tax the rich to pay for health care. Okay, now we're having a conversation. Look, there's bounds of reason to that, but he hasn't even begun to go in that direction, if you ask me. All right, we got so much more on this, and I haven't even gotten to the thing that actually enraged me the most. Wait till you hear what they're doing on Ben Bernanke. Oh, man, I blew my lid over this. But we're going to have to do that a little bit later in the program. When we come back, Thomas Ricks on Iraq. Young Turks. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Great hour ahead for you guys. I'm Jake Huger. You know the crew. JR, Jesus, everybody's here. JR's 30 now. Can you believe that? Happy birthday, man. Happy birthday. All right. Apparently had a good time last night, but that's for another time. All right. Now, I said earlier, if you've been following my tweets or otherwise, that I was full of rage today. And now, we've talked about some of my rage, which is Obama came out with this senseless spending freeze, and it's John McCain's idea from 2008. He's going to try to implement it. I don't hate it as much as some other people hate it because I'm not playing, I really am, against the deficits. And now I see a lot of economists who I respect saying deficits don't matter, but I don't believe that. I didn't believe it when Dick Cheney said it. I don't believe it now when progressive economists say it. Now, is a spending freeze for 3 years on discretionary spending that is not defense spending the sensible way to go? It doesn't appear so. But what I'm more worried about is the constant caving into Republicans. And we had a little bit of hope there for a couple of days after the Massachusetts election when Obama came out tough and appeared to be taking a lot more of a populist stand. But now when he swings wildly in the other direction and saying, oh, no, I'm going to, appease the people because he saw the polling that showed that people were against the deficits, I'm going to try to appease them with a nonsense move that doesn't really help the deficit situation, okay? But that appears to be the right thing to do, and the media will say, oh, he's so tough on the deficit, and that the liberals are howling, and that so since the liberals are upset, it must be the right thing to do. And that's how it'll play out, and so he'll gain some momentary political advantage over it, and he apparently is a hopeless politician, and that's the way he's going to go. So, now that's part of it. Here comes the second part. Today, there's a story out about Ben Bernanke and his confirmation, and they say that it looks a little bit better than it did before. Why? Because it turns out that they're not going to need 60 votes to get Ben Bernanke confirmed. There will be no filibuster of Ben Bernanke, or there won't be enough senators to join it, and he'll only need 50 votes. Come again? So let's get this right. Whenever it's a progressive priority, something that Obama promised he'd do in the campaign, whether it's strong health care reform, the public option, financial reform, anything else, Dawn Johnson is who's someone that's been nominated that progressives really like. No, her confirmation, 60, 60, 60. You always need 60. There's always a filibuster. There's no way to get around that. Except when it's something that Wall Street wants, the lobbyists want, corporate America wants, the right wing secretly wants. Everybody wants Bernanke to get confirmed. The establishment wants it. It must be done. All of a sudden, magically, you don't need 60 votes. All of a sudden, you only need 50 votes. When I saw the headline, I said, are you kidding me? I use a different word, okay? You can't be serious. And these Democrats, with their usual pathetic weakness, come out and say with a straight face, well, look, we're going to vote to close this debate, and we're not going to join the filibuster because it's important that we get an up or down vote on this. And so this will pass with as little as 50 senators when Biden breaks the tie if it comes down to that. So when they tell you, oh, no, you don't understand, we have to join the Republican filibuster, or we have to allow a Republican filibuster on other issues, and that has to get 60 senators, it's a lie. It's a total lie. When they only have 50 senators, and they only want to get 50 senators, and they want to help the establishment, all of a sudden all you need is 50 senators. Okay? No, they're using the 60 senators as an excuse to not do what they told you they were going to do. Now, why don't they want to do what they said they were going to do? Because if you do real health care reform or you do real financial reform, well, that hurts corporate America that's giving them the money. Not just for Republicans, who are all in league with them, but also for a great majority of the Democrats. So they'll huff and puff and they'll talk about blowing their house down, and Obama will come out and say, oh my God, I'm so angry with the banks and the fat cat bankers, and I'm coming to get them, but I need 60 votes. What can I, golly gee willikers, we couldn't get to 60 votes again. Ben Bernanke, who's a total tool of Wall Street, who has done everything they've ever asked of him so that they can make their grotesque profits and then have it collapse on the American taxpayer. Ben Bernanke, who is part and parcel of destroying our economy at the behest of Wall Street, he only needs 50 votes. Look at that. Magic. It's like magic. All of a sudden the rules changed. The reason I'm so angry about this story is not just the specifics of this story, because this story is an indication that we're never going to win because they're not on our side. The Republicans certainly aren't on our side, and the Democrats aren't really on our side. They're playing with us. At most, there's 1 to 2, maybe 5, maybe 10 Democratic senators who are real progressives and give a rat's ass about any of this, okay? The rest are just trying to figure out a way to scam you and pretend that they're for the right thing while collecting their paychecks from the lobbyists. Even Pat Leahy, who's supposed to be a real progressive, he's like, well, you know, I got my issues with Bernanke, but obviously I couldn't, no, we can't filibuster this. No. Obviously, we'd close debate and then vote on it, up or down vote, up or down. That's what we really got to do here. Today, we find it, but don't think Bernanke's going to pass, okay? Because lucky for us, we also have fantastic news on Bernanke today. But owing nothing to the Democrats, the spineless, cowardly Democrats, okay? And the Obama administration, who has been nothing but hideous on this, that pretend to fight for you, then they take Bernanke, the main Wall Street guy, Geithner and Rahm Emanuel, all of a sudden they're lions, they're tigers, they're bears, oh my! Okay, they're out there twisting arms, and you do not filibuster him. You get in line. Wall Street said so, bow your head, right? Okay, they're tough guys, but not for you, no, for Wall Street, of course. But where do we get the good news on Bernanke? Well, we got a whistleblower. And apparently there are documents where Bernanke's staff tell him at the Fed, hey, you know, we don't really need to bail out AIG. That, you know, the details of the documents are not in the public domain yet, okay? But it is obvious that some senators have seen them because they are now making a very specific request. They're requesting 9 different documents by their numbers, okay? So they know that those documents exist. They know what's in the documents. And they're saying, look, you're keeping it secret, but no more. We can't vote on Bernanke until we find out what his role here was. So apparently the documents say that the Fed staff said we don't really need to bail out AIG, and certainly not at 100%, right? But Ben Bernanke overruled them and said, no, we're going to bail out all those guys and give them everything. Now, this was not just Ben Bernanke, also implicated apparently in these memos and these emails. Can you guess? Say it with me. Tim Geithner, the head of the New York Fed. Now, a different report on Goldman Sachs is saying that this is unbelievable, that Goldman Sachs went to AIG after the blow-up and said, you know what, you don't have to pay us 100 cents on the dollar. I know we got insurance from you guys on these toxic assets, but you know, you're bankrupt, and obviously you're not going to be able to pay us, and we're the ones that put together the assets in the first place. I don't know if they got into that level of detail, but they said, that's okay, we'll just take them back. We screwed up, we'll take them back. At least we'll get something out of it. Can you believe that? And then the New York Fed has hired a company, BlackRock, to come in and say, hey, how should we manage this? Then BlackRock says to the New York Fed, run by Tim Geithner, as a slideshow. Now that's in the record, okay? And the slideshow says, don't pay Goldman Sachs. Well, number one, they're offering to take their assets back and not get paid 100 cents on the dollar. Number two, you can save at least $3 billion. So there's no way you should pay them 100 cents on the dollar. Tim Geithner looks at that and says, nope, I'm going to pay them every penny of it. Even though that is not what they're worth on the open market. The guy I hired, the company I hired, very reputable, BlackRock, tells me I should pay them at least $3 billion less. Goldman Sachs is saying, don't pay me, okay? Now they thought, well, they couldn't. My guess is they thought we couldn't possibly get paid on all this. Let's just limit our damages. Until Tim Geithner came to save the day, and Ben Bernanke came to save the day, and they made a decision at the New York Fed and at the Fed overall to say, no, we're paying all these guys 100 cents on the dollar. Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Societe Generale, a French bank, all of them get all their money. Why? The American taxpayer, in their infinite generosity, is going to give it to them. That is beyond outrageous, man. They're going to vote on Bernanke in a couple of days. Now, look, there's no end to how craven the Democrats are. So is it possible that full well knowing that this thing's going to blow up, that they'll rush to vote, make sure that Wall Street gets their guy, and then afterwards have it blow up on them, have it be an absolute political disaster, where the Republicans say, hey, you know what? We voted against Bernanke. The Democrats are the ones that pushed him through. And look at what Bernanke did. He sold out the American taxpayer. Is that possible? Oh, absolutely possible. Because the Democrats are both craven in selling out to Wall Street and absolute morons politically. They're going to take the hit on this. McCain and the Republicans have flipped. They're like, oh, yeah, we're against Bernanke. Because they think he's going to pass. So, I mean, now the Republicans are back to playing politics well. You know, for a while they went off the rails, right? But remember, before they were geniuses at this thing. And they got every damn policy they wanted in the Bush administration with nowhere near 59 senators. They had 51 senators, 54 senators, and they got everything. Remember how good they were at getting their agenda passed? Now, those Republicans, unfortunately, appear to be back a little bit, okay? So they're outmaneuvering the hell out of the Democrats. Our only hope is that somehow this thing blows up before they take that vote, okay? They can't vote on Bernanke. He can't pass given these circumstances. If he does, it's a political disaster, and one that is well-earned. Because then if you come to me and say, hey, no, wait a minute, the Republicans voted the right way and the Democrats voted the right way. I'm sorry, the Democrats voted the wrong way. You will be right. You will be right. And then I don't care what their motives are. I care about the results and I care about the votes. If the Democrats push this past, Bernanke passed, to pay off their Wall Street friends, and the Republican Party is in opposition, well, then the Democrats are worse than the Republicans. On that issue, no ands, ifs, or buts. An absolute disaster. All right, now, let me give you one more thing, okay, before we move on. Speaking of disasters, the guy who's in charge of these disasters, right? Rahm Emanuel. So he's the one that thinks, hey, you know what? Selling out to the corporate lobbies is always a genius idea. Let's please do that more. Let's sell out to the pharmaceutical companies to get some political ads run in our favor. Let's sell out to the health insurance companies. Let's sell out to Wall Street. Let's do all that. Rahm Emanuel is a genius that way. He thinks he's so clever. The only problem is he's grotesquely incompetent. What happened? I thought Rahm Emanuel was a genius at winning elections. So why did he lose all those elections? Why did they lose in Virginia? Why did they lose in New Jersey? Why did they lose in Massachusetts, Ted Kennedy's old seat, if Rahm Emanuel is such a political genius? Remember how he tried to steal the credit for 06 and 08? Said, oh, yeah, I ran conservatives, and they won. And oh, wow, I'm such a genius. Where I said, you know what, I don't think it was Rahm Emanuel. I think it was a 50-state strategy by Howard Dean, and here's why. And I can show you the facts behind that, right? Now, all of a sudden, Howard Dean isn't there anymore, but Rahm Emanuel's still in charge. And guess what we have? Catastrophic losses. Because Rahm Emanuel's not a political genius. He's playing a game that is way too old and way too late. He thinks we haven't caught on to him. Oh, yeah. Oh, we used to do this in the 1990s. Then we sell out to the lobbyists, and then we get their money. And since TV's on our side and never reports the truth, we win. Well, it's a whole new day, Rahm. It's a whole new day. Now, we even have some people on TV that report the truth. We're going to watch Dylan Ratigan here with Jane Hampshire and with Jonathan Capehart. And you're going to quote a pretty smart guy who was also quoted in the Wall Street Journal. Let's watch.
Actually, no, but before we get to the Super Bowl, I want to get on to Rahm. A scathing write-up on the Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, has all sorts of folks, especially in Washington, D.C., talking. The Wall Street Journal article today detailing the rising anger on the left against Emanuel, who they accuse of cutting deals, blocking progressive goals, everything from the stimulus to actual health care reform. Some would say, listen, he's the reason you got expanded care but no reform. One liberal talk radio show host, Cenk Uygur, saying Emanuel's, quote, Barack Obama's Dick Cheney. You agree with that, Jane?
I think that saying this is just liberal criticism is actually narrowing it. I think the entire country is really upset about the deals that were cut with pharma, with the insurance companies, that kept cost controls on healthcare off the table in exchange for $150 million worth of political advertising. And Rahm cut those deals.
Yeah.
This is it's just wrong, and it's not just liberals who feel that way.
But what's wrong, Jonathan, with sticking people you don't know with billions and billions of dollars worth of debt and bad health care if you can come up with a couple $100 million to buy political ads?
Well, there is that. But I do think that the criticism of Rahm Emanuel from the left, and there was, it's pretty intense. And remember, the left has been going after Rahm Emanuel and the administration since about late spring, or I should say late summer, early fall, in the middle of the health care negotiations. But look, these are folks who thought that Rahm Emanuel was going to be the pit bull that he was on Capitol Hill, someone who and in the Clinton administration, someone who knocked heads and got things done. And instead, he, according to one person who's quoted in that Wall Street Journal story, instead he's become this person who's just like, just do it, get it done. Whatever you need to do, let's just get it done, instead of having the steel in the spine that he showed when he was in Congress.
Yeah, look, first of all, Jane Hampshire is exactly right, okay? Again, in that case. Second of all, look, Jonathan, I hate to break it to you, but he was famous for knocking heads. Whose heads did he knock when he was in Congress and at the Clinton White House? I'll tell you, liberals and progressives never went after conservatives. You show me a case where Rahm Emanuel went after conservatives. Not happened, okay? He's famous for picking on his own guys. Oh, congratulations. Well, wow, you're a genius. And you're a tough guy, really tough, okay? No. Rahm Emanuel is weak. He doesn't get any of the policies through because he doesn't give a damn about the policies. And now, he also doesn't know what the hell he's doing in elections, and that's why he keeps losing them over and over again. That guy they quoted in the Wall Street Journal, I think he's onto something. Now, when we come back, Joseph Stiglitz, I think the top economist in the country, he's going to tell us whether Bernanke should be confirmed or not, and what really went wrong with the economy. Young Turks.
He said, will you?
All right, we're back on the Young Turks. That interview was a little shorter than the Stiglitz interview. But you know what? Probably equally, well, all right. I'm going to stop talking. All right, let's move forward. Let's move forward. We have another story out of China. Oh, boy.
Yes, we do. Actually, this story takes place in the United States. Apparently, there are several chains, clothing chains in the U.S. that are selling faux fur clothing, right? Now, you think that it's faux fur, fake fur, not made of animal whatsoever. Well, it turns out that there have been several undercover investigations that show that these fake fur coats and other clothing are actually made of something known as raccoon dog, okay? And there are places in China where people kill these animals and they make clothing out of it, and then they ship these clothes to the United States, and then they are sold. Some of the chains that sell these clothes include Arden B, which is a chain I shop at a lot. Grasshopper's Children's Clothing, Burlington Coat Factory.
Okay, now, first off, I can't, as you're telling, sure, I'm amazed. What I'm more amazed by is raccoon dog over here. So what is that? That's a dog, but that just looks like a raccoon?
It's in the same family as dogs, the fox.
All right, that's badass. Yeah. That's a cool-looking animal. So they say, oh, no, of course, we're not going to do fur. We'll give you fake fur so you feel good about it. Meanwhile, they go to work on this raccoon dog over here, skin his ass, and put it on the coat, right?
Right. So it's actually real fur, and they're selling it as fake fur.
Right. Yeah, that's both terrible and slightly unsurprising, okay? Because here's my guess. They're like, how are we going to do fake fur? That seems like kind of a pain in the ass, right? We got to do something synthetic or something like that? These raccoon dogs lying around. Who going to know? Who going to know? Who? Right? So then they go to work on those homes over there.
Yeah.
Now, that sucks, obviously. And so now people who are trying to avoid buying fur to do the right thing might be doing something even worse.
Yeah.
Irony on top of irony.
Okay, let me just say something. First of all, CBS News did a whole investigation of this, right? And they basically showed people how you can differentiate between fake fur and real fur. And if you open up the lining, you'll see the skin of the animal if it's real fur. So they went to all of these different retailers and they opened up the lining and they saw that it had the animal's skin attached, okay? And also, I just want to say, dude, if you don't want to buy animal fur or whatever, don't buy fur, period. Fur is ugly. There's nothing uglier than fur. Fur coats, real fur, fake fur, whatever. It's all tacky, it's all ugly, it's all over. Stop using it.
As to paraphrase OJ, that's an ugly ass coat, okay? And you shouldn't be wearing it anyway. Look, I don't know if it's ugly or not. I don't care. But I feel bad now that I saw the raccoon dogs, and apparently they got some sick videos of these dogs getting ripped apart, right?
Right.
And look, a lot of this is getting made in China. You know, I hate to hit them again, but you know, manufacturing in China, some of the standards have not caught up to other parts of the world, okay? And believe you I, they're going to cut some corners. Now, raccoon dog got caught in the middle of that corner, and they cut his ass. And so if you're an animal rights activist, you're going to go crazy over this. If you just care about, you know, animals like a lot of people do. I mean, if you didn't like Michael Vick, wait till you get a load of what these guys are doing to make your fur coats.
And by the way, the retailers here in the U.S., they're not, you know, the innocent guys here. It's not all China's fault. They know very well that this fur is real fur, that it's the raccoon dog fur.
Okay.
Raccoon dog is just a ridiculous name, but
It is. It's,
but no, they know that it's real. And the thing is, right now there's a loophole in the federal law. It's the Federal Fur Protections Labeling Act that allows this to happen.
Yeah.
So right now there are different representatives that are trying to change this law.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, is it driven by corporate America again? Shocking. Of course, they want to make a buck, and it's hard to do that here in the U.S., but then you go to a partner in China, and you're like, oh, you know, you want to wrestle up some raccoon dogs and go to work on them, and then we all make money. Everybody signs on to that, and that's why I mentioned the lax standards over there and how that's relevant. But don't get me wrong, as Anna said, we're definitely culpable as well. All right. Leave those raccoon dogs alone, all right? They look super cute. I mean, come on, look at that.
I know. It looks like a regular raccoon, if you ask me.
It's pretty close, but nonetheless, schmoopy. I mean, this one is nothing but schmoopy papoopy. Okay? And I'm seeing some, you know, Chinese guy coming up and going, come here, raccoon dog.
No, you want to know how bad it is?
here.
I actually watched the video where they're slaughtering these animals, right?
Oh, boy.
It's really bad. They have like these gigantic areas where there's thousands of these raccoon dogs. They're caged up, and they just take bats and they hit them in the head, and that's it. They're dead.
What's sick about it is the industrial
Setup.
You know, and the manner in which they do it, right? But let's keep it real, too. Back in the old days, we also humans wore fur. And, I mean, that was to keep themselves warm. And what they did to get the fur is they'd grab the animal and they'd go, "Wasiktilam, boom!" And they'd, you know, club it or kill it or spear it or whatever, and then skin his ass and wear his clothing. Now, we see the Hollywood movies and the James Cameron movies and the Dances with Wolves, where then after they kill the animal, they pray over it, and they're like, "Wasiktilam, hulu, 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 may your souls and spirits go into wonderful places." Okay, but my guess is that was a quarter true and three quarters. They're like, come on, hurry up, kill that goddamn thing so we can get his fur, right? It's just, when you see it on a mass scale, it turns our stomach a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
But overall, humans are sick animals. I mean, let's keep it real. We've been destroying other animals for a long, long time. Partly because we had to, and partly because, you know,
back in the day, it was a survival instinct. Now it's not. We don't need to wear fur to keep warm. So
that's a good point. I agree. We have agreement.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to get in trouble in this story. I'm trying not to, so I'm going to move on. Go.
All right. There's a new book out. It's called Why He's a Saint, and it's about Pope John Paul II. And it talks about how he practiced something known as self-mortification. All right. In other words, he would whip himself, he would hurt himself, he would force himself to sleep on the floor, and this was all acts of penitence. And he wanted to get closer to Christian perfection, according to the book.
Okay. Once again, for us non-religious folks, this sounds like totally cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, okay? You want to sleep on the floor and, you know, you feel like somehow that perfects you. That's super weird. But, you know, I can live with it, okay? He had a belt that he would take wherever he went, including on vacation, and go to work on himself. Like, you know, the Shia do this in the Islam culture. And when we see it, you know, when Americans see that on TV, they're like, oh, look at those crazy Shia, as they beat themselves in the back with their chains, right? and that was done recently. Well, it's done every year, but done recently in one of the main Shia religious festivals, right? But apparently the Pope was doing something incredibly similar when he takes the pellet, and he's like, "Wasiktir." They could hear him from outside the room. Okay, basically hurting himself like that. Look, if you're religious and deeply religious, maybe somehow that makes sense to you. They say, hey, that you connect to Jesus that way and you felt his pain. The Shia are very similar. They talk about they feel bad that they weren't there in the important battle that was fought 1,500 years ago, and that they want to connect to that pain of the man that they did, let down by not being there, even though it's not at the same time period. I don't know. But for us non-religious people, it seems so strange that honestly, he's the Pope, he's the leader of your religion, if you're a Catholic, right? That it devalues your beliefs, because it seems like, well, who can believe such madness, right? What does you beating yourself with a belt have anything to do with perfecting your religion or being a better person or getting into heaven? I don't know. It makes no sense. And of course, in the Catholic eyes, they're like, oh, this is awesome. What a great guy the Pope was. Mm-hmm. Look at how much closer he tried to be to Jesus. And look at how much he punished himself. But that's part of what I hate about the religions. I got to be honest. Mm-hmm. It's all about feeling guilt, punishing yourself. You're a bad person. And the way you perfect yourself is by beating the shit out of yourself. Right? That's crazy. It's crazy in Islam. It's crazy in Christianity, Catholicism, etc. And now, of course, they're like, hurry up, make him a saint, make him a saint. They're looking for a miracle. They got to confirm a couple of miracles and a card trick in order to make him a saint.
It's really funny you mentioned that, because today Laura Ingraham was talking about guilt and how liberals are, this is what she says, liberals are so afraid to feel guilt, right? And that guilt is such a great thing in life because it steers you to the right path in life. It'll always make sure you do the right things. And she was basically saying that those on the left do whatever they can not to feel guilty so they could run rampant and, be whores and be terrible people, and they don't have to feel guilty about it. They don't have to feel bad about it.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, Laura Ingraham is a jackass, so everybody knows that, right? So let me answer her nonsensical point with a sensical point. Sensical, is that a word? All right, the sensible point. Mm-hmm. Look, here's the thing, right? If you're going to go out and harm someone else, is there value in our genes that make us feel guilty about that? Absolutely. That's why they're in our DNA, okay? And you should feel guilty about that. Now, but if you're going to feel guilty because you did something absolutely harmless because some stupid book told you, oh, that's the dogma, the Sky Lord will be really angry with you if you touch your penis, right? And then you're like, oh, no, my God, oh, I felt lust towards a girl. That's in your goddamn DNA. Excuse my language. Anyway, so then you're like, Wasiktir, and you're beating yourself senseless because you had a lustful thought or something. Well, you're being crazy, man. The question is, what should you feel guilty over? If you feel guilty over hurting somebody else, yes, that's healthy. That makes us human. If you feel guilty about something where you didn't harm anybody at all, but some dude, some rabbi wrote a book 2,500 years ago saying, oh, yeah, these things, I don't know, I don't like them, And if you wear clothing of two different types, man, you should hate yourself. Look, again, I feel bad every time we do the stories. I feel like, people are going to feel like, hey, I'm disrespecting their religion, etc. But look, of course, it all depends on your interpretation. But, what can I do? This is crazy stuff. You got to recognize this crazy stuff. And remember, the Catholics think the Pope is, like, infallible. Like, that he's got it on lockdown. He's got this shit figured out. And he's like, God, what should I do? Wasiktir. And you're like, no, but that's crazy. No, don't do that. Don't do that. And so if you believe that dude is infallible, I hate to do it to you, but I got a bone to pick with you. I don't think that's correct. Call me crazy. All right. Have I done enough?
You've done enough.
Okay. Let's move forward then.
All right. Turns out 16-year-old teenager in Northern Ireland tried to auction off her virginity. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In order to pay for school. Okay?
That makes sense.
Now, this story came into the news because she was auctioning off her virginity online, and a reporter from a publication known as The Sunday Life decided to make the highest bid so he can investigate it, right? Mm-hmm. So it turns out he makes the highest bid, and they start communicating through text messages. And, you know, she sends him a text message. I want to read it to you because it's insane. It's racy, too. She says, I'm 17 at the end of this month, but I look way older. I'm tallish, size 14-ish, size 36D breasts, long brownie blonde hair. I love the way she's writing this stuff. Yeah. Brownie blonde. I actually have 3 piercings. I can basically do this any Saturday. Do you want me all night? What exactly is it that you wish to do? Among a slew of texts, many sexual in nature, she also mentioned she was probably going to drink before she, you know, meets up with him because she's going to be shy. Anyway, so when they meet up, he basically like lets her know, okay, I'm a reporter and I want to know why you're going to do this. And she basically says that she needs the money for school and it'll help her pay for her art supplies. By the way, the highest bid that the reporter made was $9,677. Mm-hmm. She got robbed, in my opinion. Like, let's say that was real, because we've read about other virgins who auctioned off their virginity for millions of dollars, right? If this was a real bid and she took it, that's so sad.
Well, you know, that story gives me a lot to work with here. Mm-hmm. First, you know, it's all about marketing. And in some funny way, this story is an excellent example of that, because this woman, Natalie Dillon, she was 22 years old. She auctioned off her virginity, but made it very, very public. And everybody was talking about it, and bids got up to $3.7 million. Now, was Natalie Dillon's virginity worth that much more than this young woman's virginity? Probably not. But the difference? Marketing, right? And she got it out to more people, and so more bids, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this one tried to keep it on the down low.
Right.
Now, so you get the advantage of a little bit of secrecy, and everybody doesn't know what you're up to, right? Of course, the disadvantage is your price is low. So I'm kind of amused by the way the market works there. There was another girl who did it very publicly, got up to a $1.5 million bid, but it was so public that she got embarrassed and then backed out of it, right? So she could have done better, but I'm glad she didn't, and I'm glad the reporter screwed it up for her. Okay?
Yeah, I'm totally glad too. It's just a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah, and she shouldn't have gone in this direction, and, you know, to some degree, you know, I feel bad for her because then the reporters, she's all psyched to do it. She's all intoxicated, and the reporter comes in and goes, "Schwang, wang, wang, I'm a reporter." And then she's like, oh, she panics and says, "Oh, it's a joke. It was a joke. What do you mean?" Right. La, la, la. It doesn't appear to be a joke, right? And the other thing is, I didn't really believe that it was for school. First of all, you know, a little under $10,000 isn't going to cover your education at the university, because that's what she said originally. Second of all, then it turned from for school to art supplies and maybe put away some money for school. By the end. And that was
uni.
For uni, right, because you want to take some art classes at uni. And I was like, now it's beginning to sound like you might buy some art supplies, some purses, and a nice coat, and then maybe leave a couple of bucks for the uni, right? Don't do it, man. Don't do it. I mean, look, I know that, look, I think prostitution should be legal. I know that there are reasons that people do it, et cetera, but don't do it so young. I mean, you got to be at least an adult to make your own decisions. When you start auctioning off your virginity at 16, 17, that's crazy. Don't even think about that. Because you're too young to even understand what you're doing. Then you're going to have a world of regret later. Right. That's so hard to recover from.
But you know what? When you read this story, right, you think about the fact that, okay, what if this reporter wasn't the one who made the highest bid, right? What if this reporter wasn't on this story and she actually met up with someone? I mean, who knows? She did this over the internet, so she could have met up with someone who's like, you know, crazy serial killer or someone who would physically harm her, okay? And she actually led the reporter to her home. They didn't meet up in a hotel or something. They went to her home.
No, it's a disaster written all over it. I mean, what if the guy doesn't even pay you? I mean, that's the easiest thing. I mean, you know, obviously violence is what you're most concerned about, right? But let's say he comes in, he does whatever the hell he wants, he does things you don't want, then he goes, what? Look, I got text messages saying that you wanted it and that we're going to be a hooker for it, or be a prostitute, right? So what are you going to do, prove it in court? You can't prove it in court, and he just walks away. What happened then? You don't know what you're doing, so don't do it, okay? It's crazy. All right, I think that's perfectly clear. All right.
Okay, now that we're talking about prostitutes, let's talk about a brothel that's in the news lately. It's known as the Big Sister Brothel, and it's in Prague. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because there was a documentary done on this brothel on National Geographic, and it's super interesting. It revolutionizes brothels.
Okay, all right. I'm
It's
ready
something-
for a revolution in brothels.
It's very
Isn't that what the
different.
Tea Party guys are always talking about? Revolution in America! Revolution in brothels! No? All right.
Okay, so the reason why this brothel is different is because the prostitutes are there, and men can go there and sleep with the prostitutes for free. Okay?
Okay, so far so good. Okay.
There's a catch, though.
Of course.
Every room has a camera in it,
Uh-oh.
right? And as the prostitute and the male are, getting it on, it's broadcast live on the internet, okay? Now, people, subscribers to this porn, pay $23 a month to watch it. So that's how the prostitutes are able to make their money,
Okay. Well, that makes a world of sense.
okay? They make 3,000 euros per month, each prostitute. So they get a salary instead of getting paid per client.
And the couples also get paid because people are more interested in couples if you come in. So nobody's paying, except there's an entrance fee, okay? But then you can buy your own DVD, et cetera, et cetera. So this obviously leads to...
What would Jesus do?
Now, Jesus, I know you're not necessarily interested in prostitution, right? But let's say it's Eva Mendes, okay? And here are your couple of choices. Or as Oral Roberts would say, your couple of three choices, okay? Although I'm only going to give you two. You can have sex with Eva Mendes if you pony up $2,500. She's like, look, I'm a big-time celebrity, okay? I mean, let's keep it real. And this is, okay, you do this one time, you talk about it forever, et cetera, et cetera. It's memories that'll last you a lifetime, okay? Or you can do it for free, but we broadcast it on the internet.
What would Jesus do?
I mean, say that I have 2,500, 25,000, you say?
No, 2,500. You don't have 25,000.
No,
I'm not
no.
giving it to you. That's your money. You got to put it out.
That's what I mean. If I had 2,500 bucks just laying around, and I think I'd pay the 2,500. if money wasn't an issue to me, you know what I mean?
Right, but money is an issue.
But
to you.
money is an issue, and I have to pick one. I think I'd do it for free.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I think that's going to be a mistake.
I think it would be, but I mean, I wouldn't be out 2,500 bucks.
Well, that's exactly why they set up this big sister brothel.
But you know what, Jake?
Okay.
Let me ask you something. You think it's going to be a mistake. Why? Why is it going to be a mistake for Jesus? It would be a mistake if I were to do something like that, because I'm a woman, and that's going to be everywhere, and everyone's going to make a big deal about it.
Right.
But Jesus, like, who's going to make a big deal about it?
Are you kidding me? People are going to be like, oh my God, did you see Rock and Roll Jesus from the Young Turks? He's got a sex tape. It's unbelievable. Like they're not talking about the Eva Mendes part. Right? My guess is that everybody would see him because of the Eva Mendes part.
Right. Everyone would
But
see
anyway,
him,
that's
but-
not the point. That's not the point. The point is your mom sees it. I mean, I hope she doesn't. But, everybody knows about it. Your mom knows about it. Your aunt. All your boys watched it. All the uncles. Everybody watched it. Everybody's up in your business. It's crazy. No. And then you have kids, and your kids are,
I guess I didn't think of it that way. I think the reason why I didn't think it'd be a big deal is because if we hear about a male celebrity in a sex tape, no one really makes a big deal about it. Who cares? But if there's a female celebrity in it, everyone freaks out, and it's posted in every single tabloid in America.
Yeah, of course. It's because what are people going to make more of a big deal about? Kim Kardashian's sex tape or was that nerd with the curly hair from Saved by the Bell? Not Urkel. The other fella. Screech, right. Well, Screech made a porn tape because he was trying to pull the Paris Hilton thing, right?
He made a porn tape?
Yeah. And that's what everybody said. You made a porn tape? Get the fuck out of here, man. Nobody's interested in watching that shit, right? So he got no attention out of it other than he's a loser.
Right.
Right? So it totally backfired on him because we want to see Paris Hilton. We want to see Kim Kardashian. Do you want to see Urkel or Screech?
No, not at all. But we wanted to see Mini-Me's.
I know, but that was just for amusement value. Okay, I mean, let's keep it real. Okay. All right. So anyway, the whole point of all this is they're onto a good idea because, yeah, I mean, you make it $2,500 for Eva Mendes, but most guys are like, I don't need Eva Mendes, and I don't need it to be $2,500. If I can save $100 or $200 and she's hot, they're thinking like, Anna, who gives a shit? No, probably nobody's even going to find out. And if they did, yeah, so what? I did that. It's Europe.
I just feel like this is going to attract the worst kind of men in the brothel.
Oh, no, I think they're going to be in great shape.
Like the absolute worst kind.
I think they're going to be like the mad rich guys that Snooki's talking about. Okay, they're going to come in there and be like, oh, like, oh, please, I would like a free prostitute. No, it's going to be dudes off the street who, cobble together $23,
right,
and then an extra buck for a, Big Mac or something, and they walk in and they're like, well, see, who do I get? Whoa. And then I think, who wants to watch that? That sounds a little shaky to say the least.
Yeah, I would opt for a different prostitution experience.
Okay, now we know.
If I were going to go to that route.
Yes.
Maybe after they see this happening, they do the club thing. Like they have a bouncer out front and they check you out and they go, no, you can't come in. No, you. Yeah. No, not you. It's like they want to pick better looking people.
That's true. That makes sense.
I would like that.
They should.
I think it's a good idea.
It's a little discriminatory, but nonetheless.
Screening.
Right. And by the way, all you Europeans, please bring it down. I'm just messing. All right, now let's move forward.
All right, we're doing a lot of stories today. All right, let's talk about Ayla. Ayla Brown, she was on CBS's early show, and she was talking about what went through her mind when her father, Scott Brown, told the entire world that she's available. So we have that video.
Yeah. And then she sang later.
She did.
And you know what I thought when she was singing? I thought, you know what? If they want to Lady Gaga her, they could. I mean, her voice is good enough. Then I thought, going back to my marketing theme here for today, it's all marketing, right? If they want, they could take Ayla Brown and go, okay, your voice is good enough. There's like 1,000 people whose voices are good enough. And we'll throw a little thing or whatever they call the underwater thing that they do. And, we'll throw a little this on you and a little that, and you lose a little bit of weight, although she doesn't need to lose any weight at all. But I'm just saying generally that's what Hollywood does to the girls. And she'd be good to go. Don't you think?
Yeah.
So our music business has almost no way of telling who's actually the most talented musically. I think they just take girls based almost exclusively on marketing and go with it. But that's my random pet peeve. All right, let's watch Ayla Brown on the CBS Early Show.
Just in case anybody...
Oh, here we go again with the broken up video.
Disaster.
Okay. I'm ready to move on. I'm not even that concerned about it.
Throughout the country, yes, they're both available.
No.
Only kidding. Only kidding. Ariana definitely is not available, but Ayla is.
As it turns out, many of us had already heard of Ayla. She was on season 5 of American Idol and is releasing her
Yeah, no one heard of her before.
CD this morning. Ayla, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
Oh, I'm done. No mas. Okay. They had a cutesy little interview. And she's, oh, my dad does that all the time. Are you going to run for politics? She's like, no, but that seemed like a maybe later. Okay, oh, please, here we go again. All right. Anyway, now she's famous. Congratulations to her. And God knows, what she'll do. But as long as you're famous, it's all good to go. You know what her dad reminds me of? He reminds me of my spazzy friend who says spazzy things. I don't want to name names here, okay? But, like, he's the kind of guy that would ask at Billy Bob's, this really rough sandwich shop in Philly. Okay, they have chicken steak and cheesesteak, right? My friend goes up and says, do you have any dolphin-free tuna? They have a lead pipe under the grill. Okay, I'm not kidding. I've seen him use it. Okay, I'm like, please move along. Okay, they don't have any tuna, let alone dolphin-free tuna. And he's like, but do you have any? In that episode, I'm not kidding. This is an absolutely true story. He asked 3 times until the guy reached underneath the grill. Okay.
What the hell? Why would you guys go eat at a place like that?
It's fucked up, man. It's because it's awesome. Okay, and they're super rude to you. I saw them kick the shit out of one guy. Okay?
I would never eat there. Not in a million years.
Okay. Anyway, they were like, move it. No, it's a chicken. He's taking chicken. Some bitch goes back up. Okay. What do they have? They have water. Okay. They have Coke. They have beer. Okay. A lot of 40s. Okay. That's how they rolled back in the day in Philly. Okay. He goes up, do you have any wine coolers?
I'm dying to know who this friend is. That's so funny.
Okay. Man, we barely got him out of there. That's who Scott Brown reminds me of. You know, Ariana's not available, but Ayler is. Whoa. Nah, just kidding, just kidding. Don't I have the sound like this?
Your host, a Turkish barbarian. Anna is a woman.
That's what it reminded me of too. Anna is a woman. Ayler is available.
Why did he add an R at the end of her name? You noticed that too, right?
Yeah, it's a Boston thing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Ariana is not available, but Ayler is. And
Anna is a woman.
Okay, let's move on. Yeah, we'll be right back. Young Turks. Thanks for watching the video podcast. And, of course, if you become a member on theyoungturks.com, you can get the whole 3-hour show.
Plus an uncensored post-game show.
Those are fun. Young Turks.